This is from a chapter called Edori, which is like a two-handed grab. Why won't he fall? At Suginami, my dojo, I struggled with certain partners to no avail. This situation had occasionally cropped up at my old dojo, and at Suginami it could not be ignored. There were quite a few people, young men in particular, who were physically much bigger and stronger than I. As I tried to move them, they pointed out that my shoulders were tensing up. "You're tightening up," they would say. "Relax." After several of these experiences, I found myself practicing with Carly, a sturdy and experienced woman who weighed 40 pounds more than I did. When Carly gripped my offered forearm with both her hands in the Edori, or two-handed grab attack, it felt as if I were trying to move a refrigerator. The idea was that I should move my weight under her center and unbalance her at the hip level, but she didn't budge. Seeing myself once again playing the ineffectual underdog, I determined that she was going to fall. Surging with adrenaline, I struggled and strained until in a gut-twisting heat, I shoved her down to the mat. Carly was unhurt. She picked herself up and resumed practice without comment. I was not so lucky. The struggle with her severely wrenched my knees. I had to stay off the mat for 2 weeks and see a physical therapist, while pondering the fact that after 20 years of practice, I had gone so plainly beyond the bounds of Aikido. If Jimmy Friedman, the head instructor at Suginami, had seen my encounter with Carly, he said nothing, but when I returned to the dojo, we practiced Edori nearly every day. He urged me to bend my knees and remember that the true center of gravity in me is not in my arms, but in the hara, that central spot just below the navel. He reminded me to relax my arms and shoulders and feel my way without resistance around the obstruction of that heavy grip, until a quick twist of my hips could send my partner off balance. You have to stay with it, he said. Accept the tension, breathe with it, go with it, search out the shape of it. If a tension arises, observe it, let it go. Return to relaxing your shoulders. Keep breathing, and you can't assume anything. Results are not guaranteed. I practiced Edori over and over, breathing, relaxing, coming back into my body. I had to discover over and over again that it wasn't the upper body that needed to move. When attackers did hunker down into immobility, resisting the movement, Jimmy urged, "Please don't think that the object is to get them to fall." What? Large parts of myself did think that. No, he said, I'd rather you just relax and accept that it's not going to happen, that it doesn't have to happen. Eventually, those big attackers started to fall with more regularity, which was gratifying to the part of me that needed a bit of success. More to the point, it meant that I was learning to relax more and move better. But the encounter with Carly had shown me that even after many years, I hadn't gotten beyond the possibility of inner and outer violence. Results are never guaranteed. The lesson is never learned for all time. If I wanted the grace and relaxed beauty of Aikido, I would have to watch more diligently for its gift, the signs of danger in myself. And I'd like to read another one called Taking Charge. Like most people who practice Aikido, I've had a few collisions or scary near collisions. It usually happens when I'm Nage, that's the one who does the throwing, and I'm guiding my partner into a fall or a roll. If I haven't looked to see where he's going and who might already be there, my partner may collide with somebody, and people can be hurt that way. After I'd had a few close calls, it became clear that I needed to take in much more of what was going on around me, to know ahead of time which way my partner was going to fall and who might already be there. On a crowded mat, I need to be especially vigilant, paying attention to the various trajectories. If my partner gets hurt, it will probably happen because I haven't seen the problem waiting on the fringes of my peripheral vision. Luckily, other people are also trying to take in the whole scene, so collisions are rarer than they might otherwise be. Sometimes Uke, the one who's going to take the fall, sometimes Uke thinks he knows which way he wants to fall, and that can be okay. But if Nage observes that his partner is going to collide with someone, it's up to him not to let that happen. He needs to take firm charge of the situation, even if it means getting a little rough, in order to keep Uke within safe limits. Sort of as if you might shove a child unceremoniously away from a hot stove. One of our instructors, Travis Enex, tells of training in a dojo in Japan, where it was customary to keep the same partner for the entire practice session. He drew as his partner a man who liked to choose where he was going to fall. And that often happened to be next to a woman whose foot or ankle or arm he would then playfully grab. When Travis saw what was happening, he decided to take charge of the situation. Each time, before the man could choose his direction of falling, let alone grab anyone, Travis pounded him firmly into the mat, his whole mass bringing the man down exactly where Travis wanted him to go. At the end of practice at that Japanese dojo, Travis said that 3 women came up and hugged the foreign visitor warmly. Travis made it clear that this kind of taking charge had to be felt as needed in some way, as when one is taking that small child out of danger. And that won't be an automatic thing. The decision about where it's safe to land on the mat will be different every time. What isn't different is the wish to be aware of this need to guide or be responsible for the situation. Sometimes gently, sometimes more forcefully. At times, for the sake of practicing this rather precise maneuvering, we experiment at the dojo by picking a particular rectangle of the mat or spot of sunlight to aim our partner toward. It's an intention that, even in that short time, doesn't always get carried out. A momentary distraction, an automatic way of moving, or even caving into what I perceive as resistance can interrupt that small intention. So the need to take charge of a situation reveals things about myself that I wouldn't otherwise see. It opens up a question, for example, about the stories I tell myself about what I'm willing to try or not try. What will happen if I walk into a room? If when I walk into a room, I decide to sit in a particular chair, will I actually get there and sit down in it? Or will my attention be diverted in some way? It's a fascinating experiment and one of the many interesting and harmless ways to take charge of oneself, at least for a few minutes, and thereby to challenge habits and fears that often seem part of an immutable landscape. Thank you.